1 minute warning. 1 minute until showtime.
Thunder, lightning, and tell the masters no more. This is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live through the America Free Radio studios to Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported network in the country. We have a lot to go over tonight. All the chat rooms are open. I'm trying to get my YouTube open right now, so just give me a second here. We're working on looking for the link. That hasn't come through yet, but we are streaming live on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, DLive, and Facebook, all live right now, as well as through freedomslips.com. So we are working on adding some more equipment to the studio, so we'll be able to take live phone calls during this program. Right now, we cannot do that. There's no call board, but we will be adding a special call-in number for America Free Radio on this program, and that way you can interact with me more when we're talking about subject matter here. In the meantime, you can chat to any one of those formats, and I will see it in the chat room. So we're now got that going on. So I don't see that we're up on YouTube yet. I do see that it says that we're online. It says that there are 11 people watching, but I don't see any chats coming through from them yet. So as soon as I see my link pop up, then I'll be able to get in and see it. I can't go in. There's one of those technical things that we deal with when you're starting up every single time you start a program. So you can leave your chats in there. Don't forget down, if you're listening on YouTube, at the very bottom, there's a little square with a $sign in it. We call that Top Chat. And you can leave donations in there, and your chat will show up in big, bright letters, and I will ask your question. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can just write your question in all caps, and then I'll see it out of the corner of my eye, and I'll cover your question. So let's get started. We have a lot to go over tonight. The format of this program is it's 2 hours long. We have one break in the middle that lasts for about 3 minutes, so our affiliates can pay the bills. So we pretty much talk for 55 minutes straight. You get more talk radio in 2 hours on America Free Radio than you get in a 3-hour daytime talk radio program. So we go through a lot of stuff here. So it looks like Biden is busted again. Yes. And if you've heard about this piece by piece, but you may not know what the significance of it is, and that's why you tune into this program, because we kind of cut through the crap and connect all the dots. so that you stay tuned in and you know where to stand in the right place. A smoking gun email obtained by the New York Post shows that Joe Biden lied when he said he never spoke to my son about his overseas business dealings. That is actually a lie. According to an email dated, and this is April 17, 2015, by the way, he was still very much vice president of the United States, a sitting vice president. He actually met in person with Vadim Pojarsky. He's an advisor to the board of Burisma. Now, you know who Burisma is. Burisma is, for all intents and purposes, a oil and gas company, but they're also a broker of oil and gas. And you remember a little company called Enron, right? Remember Enron? They were a broker of grid electricity. And at the time, what happened was California didn't budget correctly. They didn't pre-purchase their electricity to cover their needs, and they ran short. So they had to go to Enron, and Enron was more than happy to provide them the electricity for a fee. And Enron made a ton of money. And the guys that owned Enron became very wealthy. Well, then they were targeted and they were systematically destroyed through what we call terroristic litigation. Later, they recovered from that, but in the meantime, they destroyed Enron. Well, the same thing is what we're talking about here with Burisma, except that Burisma was not a Midwestern company. Burisma is a Ukrainian company, and it's run by Ukrainian oligarchs. What's an oligarch? You've heard that name a lot. Well, you'll recall that World War II, actually World War I and World War II were all just kind of one big war with a little break in between while they did weapons upgrades. A 30 years war. Let's call it a 30 years war. The war was between a force which was called the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks, which became the Soviet Union, which ended up owning half of Eastern Europe until the wall came down at the end of the Cold War with Ronald Reagan. Now, you kind of know that whole story, but you remember the Soviet Union was made up of a bunch of countries, right? You had Latvia, you had Estonia, you had Kazakhstan, you had all these countries put together made up the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, of course, taxed the crap out of them so they could keep the central government going very strongly. And, of course, they were a permanent war culture, so most all the money that they brought in went into weapons and space research and stuff like that. And what happened was the people stopped being productive because communism doesn't work. People aren't as productive under a communist regime as they are under a free market capitalism. And so they went broke. Well, when they went broke, the union broke apart. So these independent countries then became independent states. The oligarchs were the elite in the Soviet Union. Okay, the generals, the colonels, the people that were weapons brokers and armor brokers and mine owners, and these were the billionaires of the day that fed the economic engine and actually fed off of the Soviet Union. Many of them are in the region known as the Ukraine. And that's who these oligarchs are. They had the money to begin developing the resources of the Ukraine. Now, it was the same thing in Kazakhstan, the same thing in Estonia, the same thing in Latvia, except, of course, these are smaller countries, and they were able to access the New York Stock Exchange. Yes, Kazakhs came to the United States, worked with American law firms, gained access to the New York Stock Exchange, raised money, hundreds of millions of dollars, went back to Kazakhstan and developed their resources. They developed oil mines and diamond mines and uranium mines that they already had the resources in place, but they didn't have the money to develop it. Same thing with the Ukraine, except the Ukraine was divided into the oligarchs, which were these ultra wealthy, and let's call them the worker class. These are the people that made up sort of the backbone of the Soviet Union in the Ukraine. Now, the issue is, of course, that the oligarchs, they didn't give up their money to help the country. What they did is they invested their money in the industries to continue growing their wealth. That's what they did. And it was that way in the mines, and it was that way in the lumber industry, and it was also in that way in the oil and gas industry, Burisma being one of them. So one of the things that they're very good at, of course, is laundering lots of money. And where did that money come from? Well, that money, a lot of it came from the United States. It came from the Obama-Biden presidency. And how did that happen? Well, as it turns out, Joe Biden was the point man for all the money that filtered into the Ukrainian effort, the Ukrainian need for capital. Now, of course, what happened was because they had a need, and because Joe Biden could fill that need, there was the temptation that he yielded to profiteer off of laundering taxpayer money, and especially loan guarantees and loans, to these Ukrainian oligarchs, these former Soviet shall we call them the elite. And that was the case with Burisma. So Burisma is going to get a big loan of about $1 billion. Unfortunately, what happened while Joe Biden was vice president is his son, Hunter Biden, was taken under the wing of these oligarchs so they could get closer access to Biden. And for a long time, we thought, well, this was just a deal that Hunter made, right? Well, now we know, because we have this email that was released in the New York Post, that it was actually Joe Biden that made the deal for Hunter Biden. Hunter didn't have the wherewithal to put this together. It was actually Joe Biden, then sitting Vice President Joe Biden, who met in person with Vadim Pozharsky, who was an advisor to the board of Burisma, and he made the deal. He lied to America. He lied to the FBI. So Burisma is this sketchy Ukrainian energy company that put Hunter Biden on its board, paid him, some accounts say $50,000 a month, which I think is a pretty decent income, right? Most of you could make it on $50,000 a month. Other reports, and there's paperwork to back this up, say that he made $83,000 a month. That's a little bit better, don't you think? $83,000 a month's better money. Even though Hunter had zero skills. He didn't know nothing about oil and gas, didn't speak Ukrainian, didn't know the country. And the most important thing about this discovery today, or yesterday, is the date of the email. Because the meeting between Pozharsky and Vice President Joe Biden, who threatened to withhold U.S. aid from Ukraine unless the country agreed to fire a prosecutor who was looking into corruption and espionage with Burisma. And lo and behold, the prosecutor was fired. Well, in 2018, Biden bragged to the Council on Foreign Relations on camera, and you could see the discomfort with these two guys. They're there. They got their legs crossed, and they're like, okay, well, should we break to commercial, or should we let Joe just run his mouth? Nope, keep the camera running. I looked him in and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. That's good old Joe. He just can't help himself. Just can't help himself. He just has to do it. He has to do it. He has to brag about it. And that's exactly what he did. And in this bragging, he implicated himself on camera. And the investigation into Burisma in the Ukraine was suddenly shut down, at least with that president. So Pozharsky, in this email, he says, Dear Hunter, Thank you for inviting me to Washington, D.C., and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spent some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure. Yep, that's the email from Pozharsky. It isn't the first piece of evidence that proves Joe Biden lied when he claimed, I never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. Later, and this is last year, a photograph was released of Biden on the golf course with, this is Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Devon Archer, who sat on Burisma's board. The photo was taken in April of 2014 when Joe Biden was vice president, actually before the meeting with Pozharsky. And just 2 years before, he threatened to withhold the $1 billion because his son was being investigated by, then I guess you would call them the Attorney General of Ukraine. So it's pretty obvious how this works, right? Burisma puts Hunter on the board, pays him a large amount of money each month, even though he has no experience in the energy sector, even though he doesn't speak the language, doesn't know his way around. And that money sure paid off. Oh boy, did it ever pay off. Direct access to the vice president of the United States, the very man with the juice to threaten Ukraine if they don't fire the guy looking into the company. And according to Biden himself, that's exactly what he did. He threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid. And by the way, when they said, you can't do that, you are not the president of the United States. And, of course, Joe said, call him up. Call him up. I dare you. Well, what does that imply, Earth Explorers? It implies that Barack Obama knew. Barack Obama would have taken that phone call and would have said, I think you better do what the vice president is asking you to do. So according to the Post, the emails were obtained after someone left a water-damaged MacBook Pro laptop at a computer repair shop. Whoever left it, they never paid for it. They never came back to get it. The computer was dropped off at a repair shop in Biden's home state of Delaware in April of 2019. Hunter must have got high or got busy and forgot about that laptop. He just forgot about that MacBook. Also on the laptop is a raunchy 12-minute video that appears to show Hunter, who's admittedly struggling with addiction problems, smoking crack while engaging in a sex act with an unidentified woman, as well as numerous other sexually explicit images. We won't show them because this is a family program. The repair shop owner could not confirm the laptop owner was Hunter Biden, but there was a sticker on the laptop from Beau Biden Foundation, along with the video or documents and photos that sure make it look like this was Hunter's laptop. So the FBI seized the laptop in December, but not before the repair shop owner made a copy of the hard drive. So the FBI buried the evidence. The FBI buried the evidence. They withheld the evidence. Somebody in the FBI should go to jail over that. But the repair shop owner kept a copy. And then he gave the copy to former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Robert Costello. And that is where the evidence came from. So just this week, we learned that Joe Biden's son-in-law, Howard Krein, is chief medical officer of a firm called Startup Health, an investment firm looking to invest in products to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, which, as you can tell, is a great place to profiteer right now. And at the same time, Krein is advising the Biden campaign on the coronavirus. So he has an inside edge. This is a stunning conflict of interest. So stunning that even the far left Politico reported on it. Now, I'm going to put this, my notes on this in the newsletter tonight after the program. And I'm going to leave this link in here to the Politico story. So if you want to read the story yourself, you can click on the link and you can open it up and read it for yourself. To get the newsletter is the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is click the link right down here at the bottom. You see, right here. It says americafreeradio.com. See that right there? And just click on Get the Newsletter. It's free. It means it don't cost nothing. And you can sign up for the newsletter, and then twice a week, Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, because we're live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will send you the newsletter for nothing. You can open it or not open it. It's up to you. It will contain several things. The newsletter will contain a link to this program, so if you missed part of it, you can easily catch up on it, and it's good listening. And it will contain 2 or 3 of the stories that I cover during the program, along with all the links. And you can even share that newsletter with other friends and say, see, this is where I get my information from America Free Radio on the #1 listener-supported network in the country. So just so you know, check the chat really quick. Oh, yeah, lots of stuff coming in. Let's see here. Salutations from Half-Breed. Susie's out there. Saw you briefly on YouTube, but again, good evening from the WC of Canada. I guess that means the water closet. Big news day today, that's for sure. And Festus is out there. Good to see you. Stoker, Eric, nice to see you as well. Byron, welcome back. Good to have you. What is this? Promise Pottery. That's a new one. I like this. Very, very good. Okay, and don't forget, we are live on all these other platforms. And Raz is out there too. Thank you very much. We're live on YouTube and Periscope, which is Twitter. There are 2 people watching there. We're live on Twitch. We're also live on DLive, and we're live on Facebook. Now, DLive, a lot of you don't know what that is because you're probably not a gamer, or you're not one of those people that like to do homework or, work in the kitchen or just sit there watching football while you're watching a gamer play a game. And there's any kind of game you want, from war games to strategy games to comedy games, all kinds of games and all kinds of gamers. But DLive is unique in that it is a blockchain TV channel. Yeah, it's a blockchain TV channel. And one of the things that's up and coming on DLive are podcasters. That's right. So not very many podcasters, maybe about a dozen or so, and of those, not very many people are on. Like, there's nobody watching on DLive right now. But I can tell you about it because what we're doing is cross-pollinating. So if you like that kind of stuff, or you want to go see or support DLive, it's easy to do. I'm so simple to find because it's under my name, Brooks Agnew. Easy to find. And we want to try and grow that platform as well because it's competing with you-know-who and you-know-who. So we can never be censored on DLive. We can only grow. It's only uphill from here. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the Nork Parade of Fears. If you've read my book, Charm a Favor, and if you haven't read my book, Charm a Favor, you really should read the book because it has a lot of good stuff that has to do with what's going on right now. Everything that's unfolding right now is in the book Charm a Favor. I wrote it in 2011 as a screenplay, and it just kind of sat there because, well, I didn't know diddly about funding a screenplay. I still don't. But in 2015, certain things began happening that were in the screenplay. And it really just excited me. I mean, it just motivated me to pull that thing out, look at it again. And I said, well, I can't make a movie. I don't know how to make a TV series out of it. So let's write a book. So we turned it into a book. And the next thing you know, it was a trilogy, which was the Birth Trilogy. And I finished the Birth Trilogy, and people said, oh, you have to write a sequel. And I just couldn't do it. The Birth Trilogy was so good. 1,100 pages, and it just took you on this perfect journey. So I wrote a prequel to it, and that's Charm a Favor. Charm a Favor got its name. I was about 5 chapters into it, And it was all about the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate, everything that we were seeing happen. And it was crazy because people were dying, and there was all this money and all this weapons, and ISIS was being formed, and all these plots. And there was no way to really express it in a documentaries, so we did it as an action movie. That's how I wrote the book. Anyway, we're about 5 chapters into it, and we still didn't have a name for the book. And we were watching the Comey Chameleon hearings, where he was testifying before a couple of committees. And he was lying. I could tell he was lying. Everyone could tell he was lying. Congress could tell he was lying. The Senate could tell he was lying. I mean, you could see Jason Chaffetz just losing his mind because Comey was lying to him, and there was nothing he could do about it. And my editor said, "Gosh, it's almost like he has a charm of favor on him." I said, "A what?" She said, a charm of favor. It's like in witchcraft where a witch will put a spell on you, a charm of favor, so that nothing bad can happen to you, that, no matter what you say, everything will be okay. You'll get out of trouble. Nothing will befall you. And I went, well, that's it. That's the name of the book. And so that's how Charm of Favor got its name. If you haven't read it, you should read it, because it will prepare you for what's going on. Little Kim, king of the Norks, said his country will fully mobilize its nuclear force if threatened during a speech at a military parade. And at the event, the country unveiled what appeared to be brand new nuclear missile, a big one. Yeah, I got a picture of it here right on YouTube. If you're looking at it, you should be able to see it on any of the social media right now. You'll be able to see it. So this brand newly designed vehicle looked absolutely amazing. It has 11 axles. I mean, I doubt it could make turn 1 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And we have no idea if there were any guts to the cans being driven through the parade, but it looked pretty cool. It looked pretty formidable. Formidable enough to be in the next Star Wars movie. So Little Kim, however, avoided direct criticism of Washington during this parade event, which celebrated the 75th anniversary of the country's ruling party. Instead, he focused on a domestic message urging his people to remain firm in the face of tremendous challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic and crippling U.S.-led sanctions over his nuclear program. So Little Kim played the role of the barking junkyard dog on a long chain when he described North Korea's continuing efforts to develop its nuclear deterrent as necessary for its defense. They never resolved in their minds that the Korean War actually was over a long time ago, and said it was not targeting any, specific country with its military force. He said, and I quote, "If any force harms the safety of our nation, we will fully mobilize the strongest offensive might in a preemptive manner to punish them," close quote. Now, you don't have to think about that too long to say, what do you mean by threaten our safety? And what do you mean by preemptively punish them? Like 5 minutes before, you're being attacked? Or are we really talking about a preemptive attack? You see? That's what I mean about the junkyard dog on a long chain. Running, and the chain's going to snap right before the bite comes down on your quad. But Little Kim's speech was punctuated by thousands and thousands of goose-stepping troops, tanks, armored vehicles, rocket launchers, and a broad range of ballistic missiles rolled out in Pyongyang's Kim Tu-sung Square. Now, they must rehearse for months. They just got to get this just right, all right? The goose-stepping is really, really cool looking, right? These little guys would make Dancing with the Stars blush. It's like synchronized swimming. What was the most worrisome to me was the variety of solid fuel weapon systems that were on display, including what could be an advanced version of its Pukguk-song family of missiles. And this is what we talk about in Charm of Favor. This is really important for you to understand. These are right out of the book, Charm of Favor, because they're designed to be fired from subs or mobile land mobile launchers. Now, although these missiles highlighted how the country has continued to expand its military capabilities amid a stalemate of nuclear negotiations with the Trump administration, you got to keep in mind here that the Norks only have two types of subs. They only have two types of subs that we know about. And I talk about these in the book because one of the things that they worry about is this junkyard dog, sort of being used as a patsy, as it were, to, be the first one out of the cage. So one of these subs is a leftover. It's a Project 633 class Soviet diesel electric submarine. What they do is the diesel engine runs, while they're on the surface, chugga, 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 chugga. And what is it doing? Well, it's charging the batteries, right? It's charging the batteries. And then once the batteries are charged, obviously they shut off the diesel because when they go underwater, they can't run a pipe and an exhaust pipe to the surface and get air to run it because they're going to be like underwater. So they're going to run on batteries, right? And the batteries run the electric motors that run everything on the boat, the air cleaning system, the propeller system and all that. And they can't go very far on that. They can go, make their attack, but they can't go very far because why? Because they have people in the sub. They got people in the sub and they need to be able to breathe, right? So these subs were nicknamed Romeo by NATO forces. They were introduced in the late 1950s, so they're not very quiet. They're not very efficient. The Soviets shared plans for the submarines with China, who transferred them to North Korea in the 1970s and supplied the parts for another 13 in kit form. Like, here, you put these together. Although very obsolete in 2019, the Romeos make up a substantial portion of North Korea's large, very large submarine fleet. Now, in the mid-1990s, North Korea acquired, and I use that word very loosely because I think they actually stole the design from South Korea, a large number of outdated ex-Soviet Navy submarines, many of which were reportedly in poor condition, ostensibly bought for scrap. The purchase included a small number of Project 629A ballistic missile submarines. They're known to NATO as the Golf II class. Now, the Golf II class was based on the same Romeo class submarines used by North Korea, but modified. They're modified to carry 3 missile tubes in a submarine, okay? The similarity of design to the Golf II to the new North Korean submarine suggests that although North Korea never managed to get a Golf II in service, the new submarine incorporates technology from the old Soviet subs. Now, the new subs can carry 2 and possibly 3 of these Pukguk-song missiles, these solid fuel missiles. And believe it or not, they first tested them in 2016. Yep. It is thought to have a range of about 1,200 kilometers, which is 745 miles. And it is nuclear tipped. It can carry 1 warhead, maybe 2. Launched from the Sea of Japan, such a missile could hold U.S. and Japanese targets at risk of nuclear attack. And by that I mean Navy fleets. If you launch a missile at a Navy fleet, and keep in mind these missiles go up and then they come down. These aren't cruise missiles that, fly flat across the water like we would launch from a destroyer. These will go up almost into low Earth orbit and turn around and head back down at very, very high speed. Once they make their turn, they're very hard to stop. You can shoot an Aegis at them. Aegis is the anti-attack system, the defense system on a ship. It uses Gatling guns and 20 millimeter cannons and all kinds of stuff in a kind of hail of bullets to try to bust up something that's coming in to the ship. But if it's coming in from straight up, like straight down onto the deck, you really have to tear that thing to pieces before it strikes the ship. If it's nuclear tipped, that warhead could go off before the first bullet ever strikes that thing, because those bullets can only go up so high. I mean, they can only go up maybe at most a couple miles. That's about it. But you remember, these things are coming down from like 80 or 90 miles up in space. And they're coming down at like Mach 7, Mach 8. So they're coming down very fast. If that warhead goes off up there above before the first bullet ever hits that warhead, it's going to wipe everything out. The blast will destroy everything all the way to the sea and maybe a little below. So it could be very devastating. That's why it's hard, and it of course would be suicidal, because we would strike back. But this year, and this is really, really important to know, because this year a new mystery submarine has been spotted in satellite photographs taken off North Korean shipyard amid recent reports that the Hermit Kingdom has been building a submersible that can launch nukes, according to this report. Now here's the scary thing about this, the thing that we should be aware of, okay? North Korean Monitoring Group 38 North first reported in May of this year about this new sub, which it referred to as an unusual object, according to Forbes underwater warfare reporter H.I. Sutton, who dubbed it the Sinpo B class after the secretive shipyard where it was seen. This is the one I think they stole from the South Koreans. Now, in August of 2019, which was just barely a year ago, right? Satellite images revealed that the rogue regime was building a submarine that could launch ballistic missiles, signaling that Pyongyang was inching toward having an alternative means of delivering nuclear weapons. This sub is the stolen design I was talking about in the book, but it's supposed to be very quiet, and it may be uncrewed. It could be crewed or uncrewed. They both have conning towers, but here's the crazy thing. This means that it can sneak into position, it can drop to the bottom, and it can wait for up to 3 years for orders before having to move to refuel. This is very similar, it seems, to the 2 perfect satellite launches the Norks put into low Earth orbit. They too are silent. They too are making 0 transmissions since they were launched. And they too could hold enough material to make a sizable EMP. In the right position, either one of them could turn out the lights for North America. Now, little Kim had previously expressed frustration over the slow diplomacy, pledging in December of 2019, that's less than a year ago, that he would continue to bolster his nuclear arsenal in the face of U.S. pressure and soon unveil a new strategic weapon to the world. He said at the time the country was no longer obligated to maintain a self-imposed suspension on nuclear weapons and ICBM tests, which the U.S. President Trump touted as a significant foreign policy achievement. The ICBM paraded this weekend was clearly the new strategic weapon Kim had promised to show off. And Melissa Hannum, who's the deputy director of the Austria-based Open Nuclear Network, North Korea had already demonstrated a potential ability to reach deep into the U.S. mainland with a flight test of its Hwasong-15 ICBM in 2017. This is a more modern, bigger, longer-range missile. Developing a larger missile possibly means the country is trying to arm its long-range weapons with more warheads. One warhead is dangerous. Multiple warheads becomes exponentially more dangerous, and here's why. Because once the missile goes up and makes its turn, the nose cone opens, the warheads come out, and they fly off into other targets we can't predict. So if we don't get that can on the way up before that nose cone opens, it's almost impossible to stop all the warheads. It could have as many as 10 in it if they're smaller warheads. North Korea is pushing ahead of it with its nuclear strategy regardless of the tough year, and it has had with regard to diplomatic talks, flooding from typhoons and COVID-19. I also think, said Hannum, that this is a message to the U.S. He has already declared he no longer holds himself to the moratorium, and he has something new. And well, he may wish to test it. So, this celebratory event, this 75th anniversary, which began late on Friday, I mean late, like at night, it was not broadcast by North Korean state television until Saturday evening when it aired a taped broadcast. It was already history. Goose-stepping troops were seen marching in the streets in front of a brightly illumined Kim Tu-sung Square as a military band performed while moving in formation. I tell you, it takes a lot of rehearsal to put stuff like this together. The performers and tens of thousands of spectators roared as Kim appeared from a building as the clock struck midnight. Kim, flanked with senior officials and smiling widely, waved to the crowd and kissed children who presented him with flowers before taking his spot on the balcony. During his speech, Kim repeatedly thanked his great people for overcoming unexpected burdens, also praised their efforts to abide by the antivirus measures imposed by the ruling party and government to keep the country free of COVID-19, a claim that has been widely questioned by outside observers. He also extended an olive branch to rival South Korea, expressing hope the countries could repair their bilateral ties once the threat of the pandemic is over. North Korea has suspended virtually all cooperation with South Korea amid the stalemate in larger nuclear negotiations with the U.S. Now, after his speech, little Kim waved and watched with binoculars as the military hardware was rolled out in the square. He saluted as fighter jets flew in formation above his head, using fireworks to form the Workers' Party's symbol, a hammer, brush, and sickle, and the number 75 in the sky. Earlier on Saturday, masked citizens lined up to lay flowers at the statues of Kim Tu-sung and Kim Jong-il, Kim's father, at Pyongyang's Mansu Hill. Country's official Korean Central News Agency said residents in Kaesong and other regions who had lost their homes to recent natural disasters marked the party's anniversary by moving into newly built houses, and that they had praised little Kim for looking after them as their father. Now, the Chinese state media, we also need to be concerned about, because they ramped up its vitriolic anti-American rants, a sure sign of President Xi's displeasure with President Trump. But Xi's pressure is coming in other forms as well. Of course, Chinese fighter jets are escalating their dangerous interception of U.S. military aircraft in international airspace, and Mr. Xi is moving to crush Hong Kong's democratic rule of law, and Chinese cyber forces are conducting a global cyber espionage campaign to steal coronavirus-related data. China is sending counterfeit cash automatic weapons parts, fentanyl, probably counterfeit ballots, as well as bribery and a campaign money to dozens and dozens and dozens of Democrats who are running for office in our country. They are meddling with our election on a scale never before seen. It can be said that this is a multi-level, multilateral war against the United States by China. And this is really dangerous. It's dangerous for us. It's dangerous for North Korea. And it's dangerous for the world. So I'm just telling you that there's a lot going on here we need to pay attention to. And this is something that ratchets up the tensions. So as we get closer to election, we become naturally more and more divided because that's just the nature of elections. We don't really come together as a country, especially our political class, until after the election. Now, that being said, I think not many of you out there will disagree when I say that there was no real peaceful transfer of power in 2017, right? When President Trump came out and made his inaugural speech in January of 2017, he said very simply, this is not the peaceful transition of power from one party to another. This is the transfer of power from Washington, D.C. back to the people. Well, that was a declaration of war. It was a declaration of war on the deep state, on the cabal, on what you call the establishment. And they have a variety of divisions. They have the global media empire, which covers, of course, 95% of everything you see on mainstream media. They also have the tech giants, which we're streaming to you live on several platforms tonight, so we hope that we can survive on that. But they also control the military arm, which is the CCP. And then through the CCP, they're influencing our universities. They're influencing our court systems because that Chinese money is bolstering several district attorney races around the country. There are 22 Democrat-run states in our country. Dozens of cities in each one of those states are now sanctuary cities, and they are laundering and using Chinese money and experiencing an economic boom in a real estate market because of Chinese investment. And that's not only isolated to the United States. They're also seeing this in British Vancouver, in Canada. And ultimately, Mr. Xi might not even make a request of little Kim. But considering the rapidly escalating tensions between Beijing and Washington, I believe that possibility is becoming increasingly likely. And that's why I want to reiterate this one more time with you. I have covered this from time to time on this program, but I think that I need to do it again. I was briefed on this when I was in the Air Force, and I feel like you probably need to hear this one more time. This is the typical battle scenario, okay? This is a strike on the United States of America. This is the sequence of events that are more likely because our military is so formidable. It's so powerful and so well armed right now and so well trained right now that no army could really face us on the battlefield. Okay, they just wouldn't survive. We have capabilities that no one understands yet. But first strike is always successful in the sense that you get the bloody nose. The question is, can you take the counterattack? So this is the sequence of events that has been briefed. The first step is that an EMP weapon is detonated. Now, this is going to disrupt all the communication and the power distribution networks within 300 to 600 miles of that blast, depending on the power of the weapon and its altitude. Obviously, a surface blast, like in a van or some shipping container somewhere on the water, It's not going to reach that far, maybe 300 miles. A high altitude or orbiting blast will reach 600 miles or more in every direction. So we're talking a 1,200 mile diameter. A low Earth orbit blast might cause permanent damage to the satellites in the proximity to the blast. And as many as 3 to 4 blasts could be utilized all at once. So you could see how devastating this could be. It could happen in short succession. Now, immediately within 5 minutes of that EMP blast, I don't know what you can do in 5 minutes, but government does damn little in 5 minutes. They do very little in 5 months, 5 weeks, let alone 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes of the EMP blast, a submarine will launch missiles at ground-based targets. These are short-range targets. And these targets will be hit within 6 to 10 minutes of this launch. 6 minutes. I mean, we're talking 11 minutes total elapsed time here. So this is what they're going to go for. Command and control sites. These are provisional governments that will wrestle for control. States, federal government, of course, Congress and the Senate and their provisional backups, they're going to wrestle for control. Number 2 is the power distribution sites, power plants, dams, nuclear reactors, and grid connectors. Because we are a national grid, we can move energy from, say, Niagara Falls to Miami if we have to. But not if you break the grid connectors. If you break the grid connectors, that is to say you take out those step-down transformers in between or the high-tension lines in between, then that power can't move. And what happens within hours, literally within hours of that, people begin dying because there are people that depend upon that electricity to live. Obviously, the most vulnerable first, but what happens is very typical in the battlefield. You don't kill your enemy. You wound them. You wound them so that the troops, their assets, need to take care of the wounded. They need to take care of the vulnerable. And it ties up assets. It ties up roads. It ties up medicine. It ties up doctors, okay? The third thing is they'll go for the military counterstrike sites. These are naval fleets that are sitting in Baltimore, sitting in Pensacola. You know, they will go for the fleets that are in dock. And they will also go for the fleets that are at sea. And, of course, military aircraft in the air. We always have sorties in the air. Bombers are up there running sorties, and they have weapons. And the idea is that our enemies don't know where they are, so to speak, or assumably. And what will happen is, if there is a strike, then these airborne fleets are given the orders to go after their targets. And it's called mutually assured destruction. But I can tell you right now, that doesn't really work the way it worked in that Cold War. Because you have to come to terms with the reality that the Chinese military leadership has already stated in writing, and we have let you know that here on this program because I read to you their policies. They don't care. They would happily sacrifice 300 million Chinese if they could take out 300 million Americans in America. They would happily do it. They've said in their policies they can make more Chinese as long as the party survives. Now, the third thing is that once those short-range targets have been attrited, and that is a military term, it means significantly reduced, then the ICBMs will be launched at the following. The ICBMs are the intercontinental ballistic missiles, the big ones that you see in this picture that I'm showing right now on social media. They take a little bit longer to get going. They have to go a little bit further. They take about 30 minutes to get to their target. These will be targeted at what are called deep counterstrike sites, our missile silos in, say, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana. They would be targeting secondary command and control sites like Cheyenne Mountain, like Site R in Pennsylvania. They would be going after Camp David, places, what we call secondary command and control sites. And, I'm sorry to say, they would be going after population centers. So within 36 minutes, this entire battle is over. Not 36 hours, certainly not 36 days, 36 minutes. It's done. Retaliatory strikes may not even be authorized, as the attacker may not identify themselves. We may not even know who to hit. There'll be too much confusion, too much fog in the war. The vast majority of you will know nothing about it. You'll just wake up late because your alarm will not go off due to the power outage. Your phone won't work. Your car won't start. Within 8 hours, you will suspect that something has taken place. Within 24 hours, your cold food will begin spoiling. Within 48 hours, the initial movement of people begins. Within 72 hours, regional migration begins. And within 5 days, looting begins. Within 10 days, if there is going to be an invasion, that's when it will begin. Insurrection will be crushed. All weapons will be confiscated by invading forces. You've seen the movies. That's exactly the way it will occur. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back after this. Don't go away. More America Free Radio coming to you right after these messages. My name is Brooks Agnew. This is America Free Radio, where we go one, we go all. Don't go away. One more hour to go.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Narco-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
This is the people
people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Good to be back. Second hour of America Free Radio. By the way, Winter Rose, thank you for joining us from D-Live. It's good to have somebody out there on that platform in there. And just to address a few things in the chat room, let's see, what is it? Hovis plan? Huv's plane. I can't read that. I need one of those. Eric says Little Kim's sister is cute. Ooh. We need to talk, Eric. Yeah, we need to talk. Raz says, isn't North Korea CIA and this is all theater anyway? Could be, yes. There's a lot of theater going on. We don't know if those ICBMs are really anything. I think the trucks are cool. I mean, they look like something right out of remember the Thunderbirds? When we were kids, we used to watch the Thunderbirds. You remember the marionettes that they used to have with the strings? And it was cool, right? It was on every day for half an hour. We used to watch it. It was pretty cool. They have these big, like 11-axle trucks. They're only like this big, but of course they make it look like it's big, and some bridge would fall down. And what was your favorite one? I think mine was 2. There were 5 Thunderbirds. Okay, I think the number 2 was my favorite one. Anyway, Zoe, good to see you out there. Zoe Buttercup. Let's see. Half-breed Ray is out there. Said, why did China move troops to Vancouver? Very good question, Ray. Very good question. When we're talking about this, Canada has kind of a, as long as you come with money, we're open-minded to just about anything. And a lot of Chinese have moved into Vancouver. And, Ray will tell you that, and so will Vic, one of my friends up there, that the real estate's gone through the roof. You can't even afford a condo up there. Why? Because all this Chinese money. These Chinese nationals are coming in, and there's a lot of them. Now, I don't know. I've heard tell 20 million, but I don't think so. I mean, that's twice the size of L.A. But certainly maybe 2 million. That's a sizable number of Chinese nationals, especially if they come with skills. And it doesn't take much to get from Vancouver to Seattle, does it? Not much, really. Get on the ferry and over you go. And, you look good. You got good clothes. Got to go spend money. Of course, you can go. Professor, good to see you out there, Professor Bauer. He says, I think Putin is working with Trump, India, and Japan behind the scenes against China and the cabal. That's very astute, because I have friends in India, in the Sindhi community. I don't mean like Cyndi Lauper. I mean Sindhi, like Sindhi. The Sindhi community is diplomats, okay? High-level business community. It is said in India that if you're walking down the street on the sidewalk And there is a cobra on one side of the street and a Cindy on the other side of the street, that you should cross the street to the cobra because it will be safer. Cindy's are conniving, okay? They're speak with the English accent, and they're very businesslike, but they're also very crafty, and they can cost you everything. Anyway, my friends in the Cindy community tell me that the Indian Defense Force is posturing and practicing to fight a two-front war, one against Pakistan and the other against China at all times. And I have to tell you, based on the history that I know, the brilliance of the Indian people, and their willing and their talent. They're very talented, not only as engineers, but also as fighters. If you've ever fought against one in a ring, or you've ever played racquetball with one, you'll know that they have some kind of genetics that very difficult to understand. You see these guys go into the MMA, and they're a little flabby. They're a little pudgy, and you think, oh, that guy's going to lose easy. And you got this other guy, he's all ripped up, muscles up to his earlobes, and he's all got these big rack of abs on, and he's got his gloves, and he's ready to kick butt. And you have this, smooth kind of Indian guy with a mustache or a little goatee, and he's a little chubby, maybe got some man boobies, and he just goes and kicks that guy's butt. I mean, their legs are so fast, they can move like a snake. They're just unbelievably flexible. Yeah, and you'll see them win. Well, I can just tell you right now, based on everything I know, which is a lot, the Indians don't lose. And if they went to war against China, the thing about Chinese is they don't fight out of loyalty to the CCP. Okay? They fight to cover their own butts. They fight to protect their own families, but they're not really trying to win the world for the CCP. They don't. As soon as they get away and they don't have anything holding them back, like their family's not in a camp somewhere in China, they're going for a ranch in Oklahoma. They're so gone. And all the Chinese nationals I know here in this country that are 1 or 2 generations away from living in China, they love it here. They never want to go back. They're scared to go back to China because they're afraid they won't get out. They still know how to speak Chinese, but they've put on a little weight. They're happy with the money. They like their freedom. They like sleeping in. They like being free. They don't want to fight for that kind of domination. So, Professor Bauer, you are correct that India has an ally in the United States, and we have in fact sold them weapons, and we are in fact sharing space technology with them, and they're brilliant. They are brilliant. They're going to be putting men on the moon. They're going to be sending people and things to Mars, and they are really coming along. So when we talk about Trump, India, and Japan behind the scenes working against China, everybody has a vested interest to do this. And the CCP has also made another miscalculation, and that is the Chinese people. Yeah, the Chinese people. They not only have to fight against India and Japan and the United States, as well as most of Western Europe, but they also have to fight the Chinese people, which is a problem. Halfbreed says, who was it that launched a missile off the coast of California in 2010? Unknown. I like to think it was from Vandenberg, but my contacts there say wasn't them. So we don't really know if it was a drone and we were testing our systems or what the deal was. We don't really know. Let's see here. I don't think so, Eric. He's asking a question about nuclear war. But Halfbreed brings up a good question. Does any country still keep the neutron bomb? That's a good question. The neutron bomb is an odd kind of weapon, and here's why. It is not a classic fusion weapon in the sense that it does not have a destructive a huge destructive blast. It has a blast, but it's in the kiloton range, not the megaton range. But its deadliness comes from the high energy neutrons that are released. What they do is they enrich the explosion with tritium or deuterium, which is basically hydrogen loaded up with neutrons. Deuterium has 1 neutron, tritium has 2 neutrons. And they do this so that the neutrons, of course, do speed up the reaction, but they also become highly energetic. And these neutrons are alpha particles. And what happens is the alpha particle can pretty much smash through anything. Like gamma rays are easy to stop because all you need really is a piece of glass. You can stop that, or concrete. But neutrons are a little more pesky. You got to have lead. You got to have 10 feet of concrete to stop it. And what happens is the neutrons go into the human body and they stick to compounds in the human body, water, fatty acids, and things like that. And when these neutrons stick, these neutrons are at a very high energy state. And what happens is, in a very short amount of time, if a whole bunch of them hit you, then you're going to have massive tissue damage and you're going to die. But if a good amount of them hit you, a good amount of them stick in your body, then they do what's called an alpha decay. And when it does an alpha decay, this is a big particle that comes off, and it destroys tissue when it does. And so what happens is you get tissue breakdown. Your blood vessels, nerves, muscles, things like that begin to break down, and you die in very short order. You've heard of people being poisoned with polonium, right? And this is not a nerve agent. It is a radioactive agent, but it is a neutron decay. It is an alpha decay. And what happens is it pretty much rips up your tissues, and it's not recoverable. It's like drinking californium or drinking plutonium, polonium. It's a terrible, terrible poison and a terrible way to die. Same thing with the neutron bomb. Why does anybody want to do or develop a neutron bomb? Well, here's why. Because when you detonate a neutron bomb in an area, you might break a few windows, but that's about it. What you do accomplish is you kill every living thing. You can come in 3 weeks later, and the place is pretty much radiation free. And you just basically have to hose up the guts and fertilize the farm with it, and you're right back in business. You don't lose the buildings. You don't have a big crater in the ground. You don't have a bunch of debris in the streets, and everything's pretty much intact. You just kill off every living thing. Every organic thing is gone, and you can regrow it from there. So, answer, Halfbreed, I don't know. It is such a violation of the Geneva Convention. I just don't know if anyone has a neutron bomb left, but they're not that hard to build. All that really takes is a source of neutrons and a blast. You don't have to have big gamma. You just have to have high energy neutrons. Let's see. Zoe Buttercup says that's good if Russia is doing that. Putin likes Trump. Yes and no. I mean, does he respect him? Yeah. But, Russia's got a lot of sanctions against them. But sanctions don't really work if you're still trading. Like, Russia's selling lots of natural gas to Europe. They're making money off of that. They're selling oil to Europe and natural gas to all of the former Soviet states. So they're making money off all that. And you got to remember that, Russia isn't really in debt like most countries. They don't have a gross national product that's very high, but they also don't have a high national debt. So they can recover pretty easily from sanctions. And they actually pride themselves on being able to do well under those conditions. And when it comes to Europe, I can tell you right now, the reputation is things that are made in Russia, they're the best, the highest quality, best workmanship. They will do fine. Eric says Thunderbirds are go. See, I tell you, some people are just cool. They just watch the right things. You remember the Thunderbirds back from the 70s. Let's see. Oh, was that the 70s? Or wait a minute now. No, I'm thinking that was the late 60s, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 68, 69 was the Thunderbirds. Wow. That's like way back in the middle of the last century. That's pretty cool, isn't it? It says, avoid Seattle and their insanity. Yeah, that's what's going on up there. But I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of good videos coming out of Portland, right? I don't know what is going on up there, but the police, they're taking it to them right now. They're taking it to them. Let's see. Gwinnett took her red pill. Oh, this is good. I like that handle. In caps, she says, why would the Qatar military be learning to skydive in our country? I always thought it would be for an invasion. Yeah, except skydiving's pretty fun. I don't know if we're talking about paratroopers or we're talking about skydiving. Kind of two different things. Jumping out of an airplane with an 80-pound pack and weapons, that's on a static line. That's something. But skydiving, with a flight suit and a steerable square flying parachute, I don't know. That's a good question. Oh, good question. I didn't know they were over here doing that. Yeah, Qatar's bad news. Can be. I've been to Qatar. Interesting country. It's very rich. I didn't leave the airport, I will tell you that, but flew over it, and it's very well developed for a desert area. It has a lot of port area and is very wealthy. Qatar Airlines is first class all the way. I had no complaints with Qatar Airlines at all. But Qatar also plays the diplomatic game. They donated money to Hillary Clinton's campaign, and worse, she took it. So there's a lot of debt to pay back to Qatar by the Clinton crime syndicate. That's where I think most of the danger comes from. Russian tech is and has been superior on many fronts. It is, but they don't make good cars, I don't think. But their watches and computers and all that are really good. Yeah, Professor Bauer, Thunderbirds are awesome. For marionettes, right? They were puppets. They had strings, okay, and they walked them around. But it was like dun dun dun, all really good music, and I know it's not like action movies like we have today, where you have Muppets, like Yoda. There were no animations like that. It was all, claymation and slow motion photography. I thought it was actually quite clever. Actually pretty well done. I think kids would like it today because it takes an imagination to see all that stuff. Kind of Flash Gordon-y, with the blast coming out of the back of the ship, but the smoke's going up, like a cigarette in the back. But it was cool for its day. It was. See, I heard they had too much cash, wanted a competing pipeline. Yes, that's true, Eric. When you look at the way this kind of country lays out, there are two commodities, really. One of them is oil, of course, and it pools in this area, light sweet crude, and it's very high quality. Very high quality. You can make lots of good stuff out of light sweet crude like that. But the other product is natural gas. Now, in this country, we have a lot of natural gas because of shale. Shale is not so much price effective to produce oil because you have to pump propane down into it and dissolve all the oil out of the formation. You have to frack the crap out of it, fracture the ground, and get the oil to flow to the hole. You have to use water injection and other things to get the water to flow to the hole. It is expensive to produce oil from shale or tar sands. But once you frack these areas, because the porosity is so high, like upwards of 20% or more, what you do get, because of the organic decay in this area, is you get tons of natural gas. And the natural gas is at high pressure. It's like 2,000, 3,000 psi. not like little 200 or 300 psi like you have, in Tennessee or Kentucky. We're talking about deep stuff like 18,000 feet, 12,000 feet. This is real serious natural gas. Like the north part of Pennsylvania is largely untapped. There's enough natural gas there to feed the United States for 100 years just in Pennsylvania. And then you have the billion cubic yards that was found in North Dakota. What's in North Dakota, for crying out loud? I mean, topsoil for sure. You can grow wheat and corn and sweet potatoes and regular potatoes up there. It's where Lay's is, but also natural gas. Yeah, tons and tons of it. The issue is distribution. That's the issue. You can put natural gas and you can liquefy it, CNG, and put it on a ship and, sail it to a place and offload it. But it's expensive, and natural gas doesn't pay that much, right? It's like 45 cents a gallon. It's just doesn't really pay a lot. It's cheap. So you can't really afford to liquefy it, put it on a ship, and sail it anywhere. What you really want to do is you want to pipe it. That's what you want to do. There are wells all over eastern Tennessee and southern part of eastern Tennessee. And it's just sitting there. It's all capped off. Why? Because there's no pipeline. Now, that's 400 psi gas. It's true, but it's only at 3,000 feet. Easy peasy. No pipeline. No pipeline, you can't sell it. So to get a pipeline is difficult to do because you got to get easements. You got to use eminent domain. You got to put in pumping stations and cleaning stations to get the sulfur out of it. And you got to put all kinds of monitoring and safety. And it's just, once the pipeline's in, though, it's a cash cow. It just keeps on flowing. Decade after decade after decade, it goes. And, of course, a lot of people will make the deal if they have a farm or a small house or whatever. They'll make the deal because they get a tap, right? You get a free tap if you let the pipeline go through your property. And you get so many, CFM, so many cubic feet per minute to run your farm. Or nothing, because you gave the easement. What a deal, hey? If you're raising hogs or you're raising, specially bred cattle and you have a heated barn, where these purebred cows, beef cows are bred, and then you can ship the pairs all over the world for $30,000, $40,000 a pair for a bull and a cow to refurbish a herd. But you got to have natural gas to keep all that stuff warm, to take care of these really high prized animals. It's expensive unless the gas is free. See, and this is where the deals are made. So Qatar doesn't have a way to pipe that gas to its market. Where is its market? Well, Europe. It's Europe. Guess where the pipeline would go? Yep, right through Syria. Right through Syria. The other pipeline goes through Israel, across the floor of the Mediterranean, onshore Italy, straight up Italy, and right up into the soft underbelly of Europe. But that pipeline doesn't exist. That's where the whole Syrian negotiation with ISIS and all that was going on, because Iran wanted one pathway for that pipeline, and Russia wanted another pathway for that pipeline. They want that pipeline to go through Syria because Russia is an ally with Bashar al-Assad. The other pipeline wouldn't go through Syria. It would cross the Golan Heights, go straight out to the Mediterranean, go across the floor of the Mediterranean. Now that's a little risky because the floor of the Mediterranean is very, tectonically active, and you could have real big problems trying to put a pipeline. But once the infrastructure is there, you got a cash cow flowing into southern Europe. Well, what does that do? That competes against Russia. Russia already supplies natural gas and oil through a pipeline through the Ukraine. Yeah, right down through Western Europe. But southern Europe, France, southern part of Germany, etc., they would be fed from this lower pipeline. Qatar is the source of that gas. That's why all that money was paid. That's why all these deals were being made. That's why ISIS was formed. Basically, if you want to do big picture, that's why Gaddafi was assassinated. Gaddafi was assassinated because Hillary Clinton needed his missiles, rockets, and grenades. He wasn't willing to negotiate, so they killed him. And they just took it. They took all that stuff. That's why they had a CIA station there in Benghazi. And what they did is they loaded up all these missiles, rockets, and grenades on ships, shipped it up to ISIS, and were going to use those weapons to unseat Bashar al-Assad so that they could run that country and take over that pipeline. That's the story, guys. That's what was behind the entire war up there. Of course, President Trump put an end to that by empowering Raising Cane is what the general's code name is, and he ended ISIS in a couple of months, and all that came to an end. So is Qatar happy? No, they're not. But it's a lot of money, and there's a lot of deals that are being made there. All right, let's see here. What we got? Let's put our Jupiter spin on here. I like Jupiter. It's a good background. I want to talk about the real pandemic. We are talking about, COVID or the virus that went around, and some of us got it, and now we're cured, and we're probably cured from the common cold too, because it's the same virus. It's not as deadly as everyone was putting out, but that's not the real pandemic now, is it? The real pandemic for this whole thing is the rage. The rage is the real pandemic. This intersection in South Minneapolis, where George Floyd died in police custody on May 25th, a couple days before my birthday, it has kind of become a quasi-religious shrine. It is a shrine not just to Floyd, who is honored because he was the black man that died on TV, but to the political power of Black Lives Matter and their movement and the ascendancy of this radical left in this city. If you take down this shrine, if you pave this over, if you turn the lights back on, go back to business as normal, then Black Lives Matter loses its adrenaline. So the intersection and the neighborhood around it have become occupied for months. To get to the memorial, or what's called George Square now, as it's called, you must approach on foot. For a block in every direction, the streets are closed to traffic. They're barricaded by concrete roadblocks and makeshift, blockades, as it were, things you have to walk through. And behind the roadblocks, the plywood shields are stacked up next to a tent and an outhouse. A young man in a pink sweater and green hair greets me as I approach, so says the reporter. He informs me that it is Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly Columbus Day, and that there is a healing circle for Indigenous peoples underway at the intersection next to the memorial. I am not allowed to take pictures of them, he says. By what authority he orders me not to take pictures, he doesn't say. So the reporter takes pictures anyway. The memorial itself is a 15-foot black fist erected in the middle of the intersection of East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue, festooned roundabout with flowers and signs and graffiti and flags, every conceivable surface, from the streets and the sidewalk and the light poles to the buildings and bus shelters and the abandoned Speedway gas station on the corner, is absolutely covered, every square inch, in graffiti and posters and overlapping murals. The whole intersection has an apocalyptic feel. It is this way also in elsewhere around Minnesota. Firewood is stacked up around the gas pumps for use. People can just have it and use it. The scene recalls nothing so much as the shrine one sees in Mexico and Central America to Catholic saints or the Blessed Mother or the honored dead, with the crucial differences that here the shrine is marked not by reverence, but by a simmering rage. Justice, not peace, is what pilgrims to this secular shrine seek, and not justice from God, not justice from the law, but justice by their own hands. One of the thousands of signs and placards posted about the square reads this, and I quote, "Reconnect. This is a place of peace, but it is not a place of peace. It is a place of tension. It's a place of racial resentment and suffocating progressive orthodoxy. It is the kind of place where you don't want to be seen asking too many questions. The businesses at this intersection have been totally destroyed. Cup Foods, the convenience store where a teenage clerk called 911 after Floyd tried to pass a fake $20 bill where he later died, never reopened. Well, it reopened August 3rd. The store's owner tried to open in June, a few weeks after the Floyd death, but quickly closed again amid backlash from the activists and self-appointed security forces from the neighborhood. One of the store's co-owners, Mahmoud Abu Mayaleh, is behind the counter on the phone when I walk in, says the reporter. After getting death threats, he now wears a gun and employs an armed security guard at the store, which has been a neighboring staple for the past 30 years. Abu Mayaleh and his brother, Samir, own the entire building, which also includes a barbershop, a laundromat, and a mosque. But some activists and agitators want the immigrant-owned family store to close for good. A man who works at the Chicago takeout place across the street tells me it's a lot of people hate that guy for calling the police on Floyd and that he tries to stay away from there. They do our thing and we do ours. Plenty of customers have also stayed away and business has suffered terribly. When I travel around and I watch videos just like you all do, one of the things that I see is very common. It's a very common symptom of this America derangement syndrome. I don't want to call it Trump derangement syndrome because it actually has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with you. It has to do with America. It has nothing to do with the person who is Donald Trump. This symptom is this rage behind this mask. People scream. They scream until blood is coming out of their eyes. They can't control it. It's like a possession. It's like a demon inside of them. And I also see it in other places that I go. Like I try to have logical dialogue with people about what's going on and what is our road forward. How do we move forward? And the most ridiculous, unfounded lies you ever heard in your life, you can't even respond to them. They're so ridiculous. I mean, there's crazy as saying that aliens came down and used directed energy weapons, and that's why Minnesota looks the way that it does. It's that crazy. It's the lies are so bad, they're so crazy, and they've been repeated so many times by the fake stream news that they actually believe it. How do I know this? Because I heard some of these lies during the confirmation hearing of Amy Coney Barrett. I heard some of the same lies. I heard Cory Booker say the same lies. I heard Kamala Harris say the same lies. The same lies that these people that I'm trying to converse with at work and other places tell. But you can't have a conversation about it. You have to pause. You have to say, all right, I'll take a breath here because that rage is right there. That rage is ready to come at me. It's ready to scream behind that mask, and I don't want it to scream. I don't want to pour gas on it. I don't want to light it. Like one of the things I heard today was that President Trump asked his supporters to show up to the polls wearing guns. Yeah, that President Trump ordered his supporters to go to the election, to polls on election day, wearing guns. I said, I'm a Trump follower. I'm a Trump supporter. And I listened to all his speeches. Every single rally, I probably listened to some or all of the. I know they're the same. I know they're kind of repetitious, but I'm amazed at his energy. I'm amazed at how he does what he does in front of those people, time after time. Just so much energy, so much passion, so much love, so much brightness is there among those people. And I said, I think I've heard every word that he said, pretty much, since he came down the escalator in 2015. And I have a really good memory. You know that. I have never heard him say that. Can you refresh my memory? Where did he say this and when did he say it? I'll go look it up. Show it to me on your computer. I'll come over to your desk and you can play it for me. Well, they can't. In fact, they become enraged when you ask them to do it, because that's the way they remember it. That's the rage. And you can't, it's like tell it to the hand. You can't speak to it. This is the real pandemic. This is the real pandemic. Okay? These people are so triggered. And if they could, they are, in a sense, behind that mask. They're already rioting. They're already, no kidding. They are rioting in their minds. And they're beside themselves that they cannot express themselves fully, because after all, we are at work, and I'm being very civil. I'm being very nice. We're at lunch. We're having a burger. We're at lunch. We're minding our own business. I'm smiling. I'm not wearing a mask because I'm eating, but the rage is there. Now, I know you see this, and I know that you see that this rage is the power of the Biden campaign. It is. This rage is the power behind the Biden-Harris campaign. And when you pit the rage in public, it turns into what is left of the area around where George Floyd died. And it will probably, be blasphemy if anyone were to ever even envision cleaning it up and actually having traffic there again and maybe, reclaiming Minneapolis, right? It just blasphemy to even think about it. So when you think about the election, you think about it on three different levels. One is the mail-in ballot. And whether it's a unsolicited ballot, that is to say the state is going to mail it to you because you're a registered voter and you're going to get it in the mail, 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, I don't know, however many, but you're going to vote one of them. And you're going to take that ballot and you're going to sign it and you're going to vote all the boxes that you want to vote, and you're going to seal that thing, and you're going to carry that to the post office, or you're going to go take it to a drop-off box, or you're going to take it to the precinct and say, here's my vote. That's one. The second one is that you're going to go vote in person, but you're going to do so early, because you don't want to really stand in line on election day, because it'll be a long day. The line will be long. There might be social distancing. They're going to shut off the line at 8 o'clock, and then you're going to stand in line until 10 or 11 o'clock at night to cast your vote. Or you're going to do what I was thinking about doing. You're going to go this Saturday, and you're going to vote early. That's number 2, right? You're going to go vote in person, but you're going to vote early. And it happens in most states. They have some kind of in-person early voting. Now, they don't have it in Colorado. They don't have it in, say, South Carolina or Hawaii, but they do have it in most states. And the third is that you're going to wait till Election Day. By God, even if you have to take the day off, you're going to go vote on Election Day. Right? These are the three ways. Now, this is what I want to tell you. Only the votes on Election Day, only the votes that are cast in person on Election Day count. Don't throw anything at me yet. No. Because we did see states where it made a big difference, right? In Arizona, for instance, in 2018, we had the election happen, and we saw, for instance, Martha McSally won. She won by 25,000 votes. And then 5 days later, she lost. Why? Because those other two forms of voting, the mail-in voting, whether it's absentee or whether it's unsolicited, or whether you voted in person early, those don't count. Those don't count on Election Day unless the difference between the candidates, in this case it was about 25,000 votes, is less than or equal to the total of those other two forms of voting, the early voting in person and any form of mail-in vote. If those total to 25,000 or more, then they got to count them, and they have to wait until they're counted, until they can say who the winner is. And that's how McSally lost. The only way McSally actually got in there was the special election, because John McCain died. John McCain was a senator from Arizona. He died, and he was replaced by Martha McSally, right? Well, now the real election is going to take place here in 2020, and Martha McSally is now up for election because she was appointed, and now she has to run, and she's behind. And it's probably going to come down to that again. Those absentee votes, the mail-in votes, and the early voting in person. So that's why it's so important, if you can, to vote in person on Election Day. Because if the spread was wide enough on Election Day to where it's greater than the sum of the early voting and the mail-in voting, both forms of them, then they'll certify the election that night. For instance, in our state, we have a governor, Hudson, a candidate, Hudson, that's going to run against our current governor, the deplorable, crooked Democrat, Cooper. So what is going to happen is, on Election Day, Cooper is going to lose by a massive amount of votes, 40, 50,000 votes, maybe more. And if we have, between early voting and mail-in voting, say 75,000 votes, they're going to count those votes. They're going to count those votes. If Hudson's voters were to go to the polls and, let's say, push that 45,000 to 75,000 or 175,000, then those early voting and mail-in voting will never be considered. The election will be certified, and Hudson will win, and we will then have a Republican governor. That's how it works. That's why it's so important not to vote early in person and not to vote by mail. It is to vote on Election Day in person. If you can. If you can. No one's going to explain that to you the way I just did, so I'm doing it. And yes, Stoker says, I'm concerned about the chain of custody of the early cast votes. Me too. Me too. Because, those votes are in foreign hands for a long time, and anything could happen. Anything could happen. Eric says, I really don't want to vote because Trump listens to Kushner. Yeah, well, he listens to me too. So there. Kushner's a smart guy. He doesn't do everything Kushner wants him to do, but Kushner's a smart guy, and a lot of people around the world listen to him, and he has good ideas. By the way, Trump has now received a fourth nominations. This one from Finland, 4 nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize. And there's a 5th. It's from America Free Radio, but we don't count, really. We don't really count. We don't have enough subscribers. You could fix that. All you have to do is share this with your friends and get them to subscribe. And we could fix that very quickly. We are trying our best. We're streaming live on 6 different platforms tonight in an effort to try to get this to go viral. And I agree, Half-Breed, this is causing this craziness. But really, what is it? You know, what is it that causes the rage? I mean, even Jesus had enemies, right? Jesus was slapped in the face. He was tried all night. He was spat in the face. They scourged him in public. They crucified him, not because they loved him, because they hated him, because they were mad at him. The same rage that released Barabbas instead of Jesus is the rage we see today. It's the same rage. It's the same demon that is possessing these people. And their faces are deformed because this demon is screaming from the inside of their bodies, ripping their guts out, horribly tearing their heart. I don't know if they'll ever recover. I think it'll be generations before these people recover from this rage. I'm just asking them to feel the love, because Jesus, he loved everybody. He loved everybody, but he had enemies. Because it doesn't matter how much you are loved by others. It only matters how you love them. Okay? Videos from the underground says the rage is a mind virus taking over the physical brain. Humans have this weakness built into their physical brains. It's true, but I would like to qualify that. You say humans, I would rather call them mortals. Mortals are easily infected by this mind virus. It does take over the physical brain, and it occupies everything about them. Their diet, their sex lives, their ability to hold a job or be functional. I work with some. They barely make it through the day. They're not the most productive people in the world, but what can you say? They're warm in a seat. They're doing a modicum of work. What they do is good work, but you just don't want to start this conversation, because if you do, their eyes begin to bulge and the veins pop out in their neck, and this mind virus takes over. So you don't want to feed it. You want to keep feeding them love, and you want to keep feeding them patience and long suffering, because we're not mortals. We are eternal beings having a mortal experience. We are. We recognize that we are immortals. We may have a physical life, yes, but this physical life is purely temporary. We realize the eternal consequences. We realize everything we do eventually affects the universe. And we take care with that knowledge because we do it on purpose. And we realize that this rage is no good for anyone. This rage is giving up your soul to a demon, and you may never recover it. You may be born again with this rage again. And you know what this rage turns into? It turns into violence. It turns into a hatred, and you can't recover from it. Ray says, people are looked up to as long as the politicians and media have lied so much people don't know what to believe. Oh, people are locked. You say, yeah, people are looked up to as long and the politician. I am not understanding your sentences, the English of it, but I think I get what you mean. Politicians wear a suit and a tie, and they can speak in measured tones, and they can memorize a speech, and oftentimes it gets them elected. More often than not, what happens is, and I get the same thing that you do. I think I could probably shake my phone and you could see it. You see all these messages? You see all those on my phone? Oh, they just go on and on and on. You know what all those are? They're requests for campaign contributions. On and on and on. The Judiciary Committee is doing this. Erica and Don, going on and on and on, more and more and more. Everybody, a 500% match, an 800% match. It's all about money. It's money, 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 money. I'm saying, look, I'm voting for you. I'm voting for you. And on my radio program, there may be a dozen more people because of listening to this program that are going to vote for you. Stop asking me for money. But that's going on 50 times worse than that on the other side. Because it's the money. It's the cash. They believe they cannot win unless they raise more money than the other side. This is where the evil comes into our political process. And it is that way in any country, I'm afraid. Anyone who's been in the army has been conditioned, used on them. Oh yes, this physical brain can be controlled. Well, videos from the underground, let me tell you this. When you go into the military and you go into basic training, the very, very first thing that they concentrate on is, and they have a very good process for doing it. If it doesn't work on you, you're washed out. They break you. They break your mind. They break your will. And once they see that you're broken, that you are ready to pee your pants, you're broken, then they rebuild you their way. They teach you how to fold your underwear. They teach you how to wear a uniform. They teach you how to keep your hair cut. They teach you how to salute, how to stand, how to address superiors, how to learn lessons, how to memorize things, how to physically push yourself. And they give you the opportunity to have a success event, whether it's an obstacle course or whether it's a class or a rank or star or some kind of ribbon or rope that or responsibility that you get. They give you a success event. And by doing this, they have a long-standing formula. It's been working for thousands of years. It's worked on thousands of worlds this way. They rebuild you their way. And it works wonderfully as long as you are behind their belt buckle. It works as long as you're under their cap and wearing their uniform and riding in their equipment. But what happens when your time in service is done? What happens if your 4 years is up, or your 8 years, or 12, or you stay 20? You can't stay until you die, unless you die on the battlefield. What happens? You go back into society, and you're broken. You are now no longer fit for society. Or you can go be a policeman, but what's the first thing that you're looking to do? You're looking to escalate that right back to that success event where you won, where you killed the enemy, or you occupied the enemy, you captured the enemy. Society becomes your enemy, and you're now working for a new overlord in a black uniform. This is what's wrong. This is how we break our society. So when we talk about this, videos from an underground, it's a great handle, by the way, videos from the underground. When we talk about this, the first thing that we want to do is we really should spend 6 months demilitarizing people before we put them back into society. You're getting ready to go back into the civilian world. And so we're going to undo all of our training, and we're going to teach you how to cook, how to make music, how to paint, how to sew. And we're going to teach you skills that you can use back in your neighborhood instead of going back to your neighborhood with a broken mind. Now, the difference is that these people that we're seeing that are infected with this mind virus, with this rage, most of them never served in the military. So ask yourselves, who broke them? Who broke them? Who took them and broke their soul and rebuilt them this way? Our education system. And who built the education system? The Marxists. For 2 generations, the Marxists have had our children from kindergarten until they get out of college. And they broke them. They made them unfit for human society because they possessed them with this rage. And it is this rage we have to, as a humanity, as a society, we have to overcome it. I don't care if we have to break the teachers' unions, if we have to dissolve the colleges, we have to think about the way that we are teaching our young people. And we need to fix this. We need to go out and look for the good in people and help it to grow a little bit every day. I know this, where we go one, we go all. And that means we're in this together. And we've got to do it with love. It cannot be done with this rage. When you go to the polls, vote because you love freedom and liberty. When you go to the polls, do it because you love the people that are in line with you. You love what they do, you love what they can become, and you love what they can create. And maybe we can get this rage to go down. We can get this boil, this pustule on humanity to go away. My name is Brooks Agnew. This is America Free Radio, saying peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do. And we'll see you Sunday right here at 8 p.m. All right? Be good to one another. Let's see how much time we got left. I stopped right on the right time because I got taken by surprise on Sunday. Absolutely, totally taken by surprise. Like the music started playing and I wasn't even done yet. So I'm kind of done. But don't forget to go to my website, brooksagnew.com. Buy a book. Give it away as a Christmas gift. And you can even get for free a signature card to go in it. So you can give away a signed copy of my book. Any of them. They're right there. We'll see you next Sunday right here.